Am I the asshole for taking an internship that was meant for a different identity group than mine? I'm Egyptian. In the US, North Africans are classified as white. I have always been regarded, categorized by my peers as a POC, although admittedly ambiguously. My dad has a dark skin tone and curly hair, but my mom is fair with straight hair. I have curly hair texture and tan skin. I have non-Eurocentric facial features. I do not look or feel white. If I were to pick a group that I feel like I share the most with feature-wise, it would be lighter-skinned black people. When I got older and started filling out paperwork on my own, I have mainly chosen that I'm black, African American. I don't feel like I have been able to navigate life the same way that a white or a black person does, leaving me in a confusing middle ground. I initially found comfort with African American in a way that I hadn't with black, white. The internship comes from an explicitly black-led org. None of the requirements listed that you had to be a black individual to apply. I now realize that this might have been implied given the name, mission statement of the org, which I admit I didn't dive deep into before applying. When it came time to fill out my application, I chose the black, AA category, as I usually do. In my essay, I didn't talk about my identity, as it wasn't requested. The application required a photo, which I submitted. Fast forward to now, I got accepted into what I believe is an amazing opportunity, but I'm filled with guilt. This guilt came about when the orientation leaders talked about the mission of developing black leaders. I noticed that all the others in my cohort were black individuals. I guess because of the language of the initial application listing, I didn't really recognize that this would be an explicitly black space and that I would be the only one who doesn't really relate to the experiences of my peers. During a recent call with the coordinator, I expressed concern about this and said that I more closely relate to the mixed, AA category, which I didn't realize was an option on the application initially. She asked me to elaborate mixed, and I panicked. I just said like, black and white, again omitting the truth of being North African. Although I've written about how I feel that I'm in the middle between the two and how my dad has more black features and my mom has more white, I know that this was wrong. She stated that the internship is meant for anyone within the black community in any regard. I didn't push the conversation further. I also asked during the same call, talking about a different topic, if they were able to offer my spot to another applicant if I couldn't complete the term for any reason. She said they wouldn't. Of course, I am not sure if it's impossible, but the internship has already started and I don't believe they'd be able to onboard another applicant. I would want to drop out so that an, unambiguously, black applicant can get the opportunity that was meant for them. But with the likelihood that someone else wouldn't get the spot, should I still drop? Edit. I had commented some extra info below for additional context. Here it is. From what I've learned through taking classes centered around social justice, race is ever-changing, especially as defined by the U.S. government, who at one point did not classify Irish people as white and are now considering classifying Asians as white. This is to say that race is not a set, fixed thing. Rather, it is arguably socially constructed and based on outsider perception or socio-cultural factors. However, this is not me trying to justify my actions in any way. I completely admit that I went about things the wrong way. I am just explaining my perspective further. But I really want to make it clear that I know I do not share the same experiences as the black community. I am very fortunate in that I have not really been a target for direct racism. Potentially, I have experienced some indirect forms of it, or I have experienced the systemic, unrecognizable ways of it, but nothing direct. My thought process behind choosing to identify as black, African American on this application and many others was that Egypt is in Africa. I started doing this at 16 when I maybe didn't realize that African American, as it means in the US, does not entail all of Africa. I think this is a great opportunity and it will allow me to explore one of my main areas of interest career-wise and build strong connections, but with the guilt I feel, I am just not sure if it's ethically right for me, even if it may personally make sense. I am trying not to be self-serving in this situation. As someone who wants to build a life centered around advocating for marginalized individuals and improving conditions for them, I feel like this is an incredibly counterproductive step. In a sense, this opportunity could lead me to accomplish my goal, but at the expense of those I want to help. And I will admit that some part of me is afraid that later on in my career I'll get exposed, or that this lack of clarity, omission, will catch up to me and I'll, rightfully, be held accountable. Maybe subconsciously I posted this to gain validation. However, I value honest, genuine thoughts regarding this. If you're an Egyptian American, and Egypt is in Africa, then to me you're African American. Not the asshole. I am a white European though, so maybe I'm not the right person to answer. Dude, not the asshole. 1. You are African. You have a right to be there. 2. Your experiences of discrimination will be slightly different but are no less valid. People from MENA and South Asia still experience violent racism, discrimination and stereotyping. 3. Diversity of experience leads companies to be stronger. Being North African and your unique experience will only strengthen the firm. Nah. Let me elaborate. You are technically African American. Your parents are Egyptian, which is a part of Africa technically. As long as you stop omitting the truth, and run with it, it's okay. Many black people across the globe see Egyptians as a part of the black society, because of the closeness. The phrase is deemed sub-Saharan Africans. Unless you are from South Africa and are white, I think you're in the clear. Just stop lying up. You are making it worse. Not the asshole. I think you're overcomplicating this. Identities can be complicated and intersectional. You aren't and never will be treated as a white woman in the United States. Egypt has its own colorism, racism, and you're trying to correlate that along with walking through America as someone with dark skin. You can claim being African and talk about your own life and issues. Define yourself and stop letting other people do it for you because of ever-shifting politics. This seems like an odd AITA. Your supervisor is obviously fine with you being there. You're obviously a POC rather than white, appearing white. You don't feel white. Why would you be the asshole just because there are people with, even, darker skin? Not the asshole. Aren't Egyptians more Middle Eastern than African? In the US, North Africans are classified as white. Not the asshole. It's not your fault that the US is being purposely misleading with how they collect demographic data. My dear, you do realize Africa is a continent of blacks, and as a fellow African I must say this to you. The original Egyptians were black. Furthermore, blackness is nuanced and supposedly Eurocentric facial features do not determine if one is black or not. Genealogy determines that. And honestly dear, North Africa aka the Maghreb still has its original peoples, hence the attempt to make it into a place which was originally inhabited by Arabs or Bedouin is a false notion. For example, my people, originally come from the Malian Empire, which encompassed modern-day Mauritania. You're black, simple as that. Not the asshole, but I am disturbed by the way you're thinking about your identity and using the old colonial way of thinking. Am I the asshole for resenting a baby? I, 30F, got pregnant when I was 18 and met my now husband, 33M, 2 weeks after giving birth. Within the first year of my son's life the bio dad signed away his rights and my husband adopted our son. My husband has always treated my son as if he's his bio dad. We haven't told my son yet that he has a different dad than our 3 daughters. My in-laws know this, but have always treated our son the same way. A couple Christmases ago my brother-in-law and his wife gave my in-laws 2 gifts. The first one had an ultrasound and a due date. The second one had, baby boy, clothes and shoes in it. Everyone freaked out and were so excited. Then, my Sil and Mill started yelling over and over again, finally we're going to have a last name, boy, to pass on the family name. My heart instantly broke. Luckily, my son was just out of earshot. My face instantly dropped, but I didn't say anything as to not ruin the new parent's special moment. I didn't end up bringing it up at all to my in-laws. I just started staying home during weekend dinners, and when my Mill gave me an invite to new mom's baby shower I said I was going to be gone for the night. Deep down it absolutely crushed me because I felt like the true feelings had come out. It made me feel like they never actually viewed my son as part of the family. My son shares the same last name as the new baby, but my son doesn't count to carry on the family name? It was a Freudian slip if I've ever heard one. Fast forward to about 10 months later. I had been excusing myself from all possible family gatherings. My husband decided one day that it had been long enough and they needed to know what they did and how it looked, felt. He went over by himself and at first it was just his mom and dad. He told them how it all played out and what was said over and over again. My Mill instantly got defensive and my Phil instantly defended her. You have absolutely no idea how hard this has been on your mother for the past few months. This has been eating away at her and stressing her out so much. Not one mention about my son, if he heard or not, how this possibly made him feel, or how it made me feel, and no one ever reached out to try and make it right. They then called my sil over because she had said it too and they wanted to include her in the conversation that was extremely one-sided. We didn't mean it like that. We meant another boy to pass on the name. No. Absolutely not. You two yelled it over and over again. My husband doesn't have a biological son. Only an adopted one. There was no apology. There were excuses and a lot of defensive talk. Apparently some of it was my fault. Am I the asshole? Edit. I'm not still avoiding my in-laws. I started going back to events after my husband had the convo with them. I didn't feel that there was a point in me having a convo with them because it would have just made things worse, and I have a really hard time getting how I feel and how it hurt across, especially when it's with people of importance. The only person I can do this with is my mom. Don't worry, I'm working on it in therapy. I also know that my son should have just grown up knowing the truth. Unfortunately, that isn't something I can take back, but we're about to tell him. At this point we want to be the ones to tell him rather than him finding out that he didn't get his eye color from me or my husband in biology. I'm fully aware that I am the asshole for not telling my son. Your in-laws for clear reasons. You and your husband. First, because you have kept this well-known secret from your 12-year son. He is more than old enough for the facts. Some of your strong reaction may even be your own guilt at keeping this from him as if it matters, which obviously it does not. Also, because you should have spoken with your in-laws about the situation once the most heated emotion had passed, a few days, probably. Choosing the passive-aggressive route rarely has the effect you hope for. You are the asshole for not telling your kid he is adopted. He is 12. What are you waiting for? Him to find out on the streets and be pissed off? Not the asshole, but I think you framed your title wrong. It doesn't sound like you resent the baby. It sounds like you resent your husband's family, and rightfully so, for how they reacted to the baby. Everyone sucks here. Your son is 12 and doesn't know his father isn't his bio father? You're made it harder for him when he does find out. Don't resent the baby. They didn't do anything. You're ill suck for being so excited about having a boy. But you admit that they don't treat him any different from the girls. Talk it out and let it go. You've been avoiding them for almost a year due to this? You wait until the baby couple months to hash this out with Sil, who's new mom? Were their actions insensitive? Yes. Is there any reason for you to have dragged this out for months, instead of having the conversation about why it was insensitive before? Why is avoiding us, could become its own issue. Not that I can see. If you want to get mad about your son still being owed an apology, fine. Although I missed the part where you haven't had the conversation about his bio dad with him yet, which… Yikes, but you can't get mad at them for not reaching out about how you were feeling when you went out of your way to avoid communicating with them about how you were feeling. This should never have been a family secret to begin with. Your son is someday going to find out he has a different biological father, and is probably going to resent the lie. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. His dad is his dad, regardless of biology. Especially since his dad treats him the same as his actual biological children. And grandma and grandpa suck for obvious reasons. Yeesh. But I don't think you're an asshole for being hurt by what they said. They definitely were in the wrong. You are the asshole. You are making this a way bigger deal than it is. You said yourself that they've always treated your son the same way as your daughters. You are damaging your son's, your husband's and your daughter's relationship with their family over a thoughtless statement said in a time of great excitement. You come off as really immature and self-centered here. Why not quietly tell your in-laws how you felt instead of throwing a giant fit and alienating your kid's family? You sound like a teenager. You are the asshole. You let this go on for 10 months? Good God. They made a thoughtless comment that wasn't even really directed at you, and you didn't even give them a chance to apologize. I wouldn't feel like apologizing after 10 months of silent treatment. Either your SIL's entire pregnancy and the birth of her child. How stinking childish. I'm shocked your husband didn't say something much sooner. Am I the asshole for moving halfway across the planet temporarily? Hey guys, so I, 26 female, just moved roughly 18,000 kilometers away from my ex-boyfriend, 32 male. And we have a daughter together, 2 female. Sorry for any mistakes, I am French. Long story short, I am from a small island in Polynesia and I moved to France in 2017. Met my ex and had a kid there. I have zero family in France. We broke up end of 2020. It was a rough breakup, but I wanted my daughter to be with her dad as much as possible, but at the same time he would insult me and our baby anytime he would get mad at me. I decided to stay in France to stay close to him for our daughter's sake. Lived there until my mother passed in April this year. I couldn't attend the funeral because of the pandemic, but I decided to go back to my island in June, taking my daughter with me to help my dad with cleaning and sorting out my mom's stuff. We had meetings with a notary, not sure if it's the right word, and of course I needed that time here with my family to cope with my loss. I didn't plan on staying here because I like living in France, and to be honest I don't like living on a tiny island. But my ex is calling me selfish and an asshole and all kinds of slurs because I stole his daughter. He is not that involved with her to begin with. I have custody and I was just planning on visiting my family for a couple of weeks until we got into lockdown in my home country. I have to wait until probably October to go back. Am I the asshole for going home and be with my family even though he doesn't show much interest in our daughter in the first place, if not for showing her off on social medias? If you have any questions I will answer them. Edit. I did ask my lawyer if it was okay for me to leave without getting in trouble, and she said I could since the court gave me 100% custody. He is allowed to see her under supervision. Edit number 2. When I say he calls her name when he gets mad, I don't mean directly to her. He usually insults me over the phone, then say something bad about her to really hurt me even more, than hang up. Never been abusive to her face. Just insulted her sometimes to me over the phone. And I did block him everywhere and decided to stick around Tahiti for a while until I am totally better. If I do move back to France, I will avoid Paris so I never run into him and won't notify him of my location. If he wants her so bad he can talk to a judge. Thank you all for your comments. I am trying to keep up and reply as much as I can. Additional infos. I was granted full custody because he was abusive mentally and physically towards me. Made multiple death threats towards me and would threaten to slit my cousin's throat when I would visit her whenever we would argue. She lived in France for a while before moving back home as well, and he knew her address. I showed text messages to the judge where he would call his daughter a little bitch. He also owned multiple weapons. I took videos of all of his weapons and showed it to the judge as well. Machetes, axes, multiple large knives and an AK-47 which turned out to be demilitarized, but I didn't know that. So he would tell me he'd use it on me. That's why he is still out. He threatened to blow up my door at 4 a.m. while I was with my daughter inside. He is dangerous, but the court told me he could visit only under supervision and never at his house. He also had a restriction order which was lifted after he agreed to see his daughter only under supervision. Not the asshole. Tough decision, but the behavior of the father really makes any other decision impossible. You can't leave your daughter with him. You can't opt out of supporting your family after the loss of your mother. Even if your child's father didn't act like a jerk so frequently, sometimes in life there are no great choices, you just have to go with the least bad. You have enough on your plate without feeling guilty about making the best possible decision, so put that aside for now if you can. So sorry for your loss. Not the asshole, sorry for your loss. Also, you can't control lockdown. Not the asshole, but I would definitely consult a lawyer as this might be seen as kidnapping. If he's verbally abusive to you both, leaving him alone and having only court-ordered interaction sounds like the most logical and safe way to protect you and your daughter. But some laws, especially international laws, could define what you did by moving with your daughter without his or a court's express consent, could land you in hot water in the future. Not the asshole. You have custody and I believe in full since the court allows you to bring her away with you without his okay. In this case, you didn't do anything wrong at all. He's not really involved in daughter's life and you're back home temporarily because of family issues and can't head back to France because of lockdown, but will be back eventually once it's over. If he's truly missing daughter, he can always video chat with her. Is he even doing this? I highly doubt so. If I'm right, he's just finding any means to pick a fight with you, that's all. If you have full custody, I don't think there's much he can do. And considering the way he treats you, I'd be extremely concerned about the way he treats your daughter whenever he gets mad at her. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. He sounds controlling. You have to live your life. You also sound like you are trying to be respectful of your ex's relationship with your daughter, and he is being a jerk. Not the asshole. Condolences on the kids of your mother. Not the asshole. You did what you needed to do in a time of great hurt and pain for you. Also, he has treated you awfully. I'd consider looking into legal action. Am I the asshole for deciding I won't let my in-laws make me ride in the back seat? My husband, 32 male, and I, 29F, go on a beach vacation every year with my husband's parents and we always share a condo. Now, for background, my parents' dad is in his 60s and he is a pastor. My mother-in-law is in her 50s and is involved with the church, as well as running her own business. They are both wonderful, strong people and I love them very deeply. Here is the issue. Both his mom and dad can be very petty and hard-headed. At the beginning of the trip, they got into an argument over what tip to leave on our dinner bill. He wanted to leave 30% and she wanted to leave 15%. This started a tiff that my husband and I both tried to fix, saying we will pay the tip, since they couldn't decide. They were not okay with that. One of them had to win the argument. Anyway, about 15 minutes of back and forth go by and the bill is paid and we are ready to leave. Dad-in-law, however, is still fuming. And since we took separate vehicles to the restaurant, he decides to ride with us to avoid the 15-minute car ride with his wife. Now normally, I would have absolutely zero problem with this, however, my husband's car is virtually a two-seater. It has a back seat, I think for insurance purposes maybe, but it is virtually unusable. Not only is it smaller than the size of a small trunk, but we also had a lot of stuff back there. I gave in and crawled to the back seat. Now, I'm in the back seat sitting facing the passenger side with my legs propped up on a box and wedged my upper half of my body between the box and the window. During this ride I cannot move. I cannot see where we are going, and I am unable to be wearing a seatbelt. I felt extremely unsafe. I'm terrified of driving in general. I get very bad anxiety and am aware anything could happen at any moment. I did not like that. I felt a tad upset that I was put in that situation, but once we got back to the condo, safe, I was okay enough to just let it go. I did tell my husband that upset me and I felt unsafe, but he's more of a fine, everything is fine sort of person. Okay. I let it go. Well then, the next time, at the condo, mom and dad-in-law start another petty tiff. The tiff is over what time to make reservations for a boat ride, and again they were both too mad to ride in the car together. I'm again forced into the exact same situation. This time I was pissed. I kept making remarks like, if we get in an accident I'm gonna die first and then my body will become a projectile and kill you guys. Hubby wasn't pleased with my remarks and mom-in-law just laughed them off. Now I'm at a point where if this happens again, I want to say no. I do not feel safe. And it's extremely selfish and inconsiderate to put me in danger. Am I the asshole for not just sucking it up? Are my concerns petty or are they valid? I don't ever want to be rude to my beloved in-laws, but there has to be a line. Edit to clarify. Mil al significant other HAS 2-seater, but I was unaware of the predicament before it happened on both occasions. Edit to clarify a bit more. There are several other extended family members and cars in the equation and a lot going on. Both times this happened, I didn't choose one car over another. I just had the one option. Not the asshole, but if you're too chicken to just straight up say, there's no room for 3 people in this car, then maybe you need to go ride with your mill. I guess not the asshole, but I felt so frustrated by your choices while reading this. Your husband can say, it's fine, as much as he wants, but he's not the boss, he can't force you to ride in the back. You could have said, no, we don't have the space. And turned it on them saying, I'm sure you'll be fine riding with your wife. It shouldn't be a problem. It's fine. Let's go. If you really wanted to be a people pleaser, you could have at least done so without putting yourself in danger and just ridden with Mill. Then you allowed it to happen for a second time, and just made passive-aggressive comments instead of saying no? Please. Say no. Also, your husband caring more about pleasing his parents than he does about your comfort and safety is something you should probably talk about together. Info: why didn't you get into the car with your Mill instead? If both vehicles are going to the same destination, then why don't you just ride in the other car? It's pretty silly to have 3 people packed, unsafely, into a 2-seater and one person driving a second car to the same place. Not the asshole. But why not just ride in the other vehicle? There's only one person in that car, isn't there room for you? If it's an issue of taking sides, or it's our car I should be in it, isn't your safety, which is the main point of this post, much more important here? Not the asshole. Yeah, this routine with the cars is ridiculous. Maybe announce you're renting your own car if this continues. I don't understand why you didn't just ride with Mill. The 2 guys in husband's car, the 2 girls in Mill's car. Not the asshole, but I'm not sure this is the real problem here anyway. Maybe it's time for DH to have a little talk with his parents. Phil is a pastor with anger issues toward his churchy wife? Now, how Christian is that? Bickering to the point that they can't be in the same car? Somebody needs to walk the walk. Not just talk the talk, and act like they know how to show some love and forgiveness toward each other.